Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us for this concert conversation, part of a series. It's sponsored by Chris Connolly and Wells Fargo Advisors, and it's a great opportunity for those of us who love the Quad City Symphony Orchestra to get a little bit of a sneak peek behind the music that we'll be hearing. And today we're talking, of course, about our December Masterworks program. It's coming right up under the title Winter Wonders, and it's going to be a concert fraught with all different types of styles and different types of music. And so let's dive right in. I want to thank our guest, as always, the music director and conductor of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, Mark Russell Smith. Maestro, thanks for being with us.
As always, a pleasure.
Well, I'm very excited by this concert, in part because an old friend that is familiar to many of us, but not so much in the symphonic, in the concert hall setting, with a symphony orchestra, and that is George Frideric Handel. And we're going to be starting with the suite of music from Alexander's Feast. And I think you know what I'm going to ask. I mean, how did this come into focus in your vision for this wonderful December program?
Well, because the size of the orchestra for the whole program is smaller than usual, or it's we always try to break things up and have lots of variety. And one of the things that we vary is the size of the orchestra. And that is based on repertoire. And so in Mozart's time, orchestras weren't as huge as they were in Strauss's or Mahler's or Bernstein's time. So we start with that kind of as our biggest orchestra, and then we kind of vary it from there. And so the music of Handel was written for even smaller forces. They didn't have huge concert halls back then. They performed in intimate spaces and in churches. And so this is from an oratorio, music taken from that. So that's on a, of course, grander scale, but written specifically for small orchestra. In this case, strings and 2 oboes, and that's it.
And that makes it for a nice little pairing, obviously, because the oboe, among all the instruments, has a quality that's, I think, exceptionally voice-like. And I think, given that Handel did so much music for and around and celebrating the human voice, that makes it a nice pairing. But what can you tell us about the work that we'll hear?
Well, it's colorful. It's great. It's a concerto. Part of it's concerto grosso form, which means soloists come out of the orchestra. So the first chairs of the sections of the first violin, the second violin, and the cello section play solos, and so it's kind of a back and forth. It's called solo and ripieno, which ripieno just means the answer, the others, And so there's lots of back and forth in that way, and so the music is constructed in that way as well. Again, this is music taken from a much grander scale, and Handel absolutely, recycled. He was a great recycler of his own music, from Messiah, from operas, from whatever, from instrumental works. You mentioned that he's not often played in the concert hall, and there's a ton of music that could be played. I mean, there are lots of overtures, of course. There's lots of opera, but he wrote a bunch of concerto grossi for strings. That really aren't played very often, but are really wonderful pieces. So yeah, it's just an opportunity to explore that, and a great opener. And we play Baroque music, but not often enough. We're doing Bach later on in the year, pairing with the Fauré Requiem. But people love Baroque music, and I think the orchestra plays it in a very stylish way. And so it's just exploring music of course, master composers, but also of different eras is part of the idea with this.
Well, and we're going to go from the relatively early end of the spectrum in terms of the scope of chronology that we often hear at our QCSO concerts, to something that is very, very new and exciting. Right. And that will be the second work on the program. It's entitled The Indian Spirit at Mesa Falls, from a broader work called Winter Moons, by Jerod Impichchaachaaha Tate. Impichchaachaaha is Jerod Tate's Chickasaw name. He comes from the Chickasaw culture, and I understand that it's the family name, pretty much directly translated, is high corn silo or platform where they would store corn. And so that was something that his family was associated with. And he's very, it's interesting to learn about that because many folks from the Choctaw, or Chickasaw rather, the Chickasaw culture have lost the access to that family name. And he was able to recover it for his family.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm assuming based on that and what I've heard from him and his lectures, that this is really a celebration of, if not specifically Chickasaw, then definitely Native culture.
For sure. And winter moons, you know, I mean, this is what, here's the tie-in, of course. You know, the tradition of telling stories when the moon is full, and in this particular case called Winter Moons. This is a ballet that was actually first performed in Wyoming, I think at the University of Wyoming. Somehow Jerod's mother is either a professor there or somehow she was involved in the performance of this ballet. And so he wrote ballet music of 4 different stories, 4 different chapters. And this Winter Moons is one of them that of course fits really beautifully with our theme. And here we are in winter, and also the size of the orchestra, but it also gives just great variety. I mean, it's a very, you know, I mean, it's very evocative, picturesque music, you know, very descriptive music, very, very approachable music, but really tells a story, a very clear story. I mean, not unlike movie music, kind of, you know, adding to the color, and you can really use your imagination to see things coming to life. I mean, as a ballet, you know, we won't have dancers, of course, but as ballet music would do.
Now, what about the instrumentation? Because we're going to be coming out of the Baroque. And what sorts of instruments will be?
Well, it's small. It's very small. Small
Yeah.
strings and some solo winds and a trumpet and piano. There's a large turn for piano. So it's, you know, it's kind of pit orchestra size, you know, with just kind of single winds instead of the full complement of winds and brass. And so we have lots of solo voices and lots of solo colors that, you know, tell their individual stories.
How did this composer come onto your radar screen?
I had heard of him. He was a graduate of Northwestern University, and I don't know how long he lived in the Chicago area, but I had heard of his music from back when I was with the Phoenix Symphony. Actually, we did a lot of Native American programming, and you know, I'm looking for music for composers, from Native American composers, and so his name came up, and then and again, thematically, it works so well with the winter and the winter moons and everything, and pairing with the Harbison piece as well, Snow Country. So we have kind of 2 American outdoorsy or you know, not just very descriptive, like I think quintessentially American pieces.
Well, and to get to the second part of that, we'll be hearing John Harbison's Snow Country, and
Right.
very new to me. So what can you tell us about it?
Well, it's John Harbison lives in Boston, is, you know, a very famous American composer. He's had, you know, the Metropolitan Opera has done his operas, lots of vocal works, lots of church works. You know, how do you describe his style? I mean, it harkens back. I mean, he's a lover of Bach. He knows the music of Bach. And so he looks backwards a little bit as far as for form and for inspiration, but very much his own voice. Certainly, you know, triadic harmonies. So I mean, it's nothing super brash, but it's also edgy, and especially the Snow Country. I mean, the effects that he gets is just for string orchestra and solo oboe. And so kind of some of the brittleness of maybe of a, you know, a snowy landscape, or, you know, I mean, he really captures sonically, like Tate does, you know, it's very evocative sonically of the picture that he's trying to paint. And of course, we have an amazing oboe player, Andy Parker. And so when I had performed this piece earlier with St. Paul Chamber Orchestra years ago, you know, I kind of kept in mind, you know, sometime we need to find a place for this in quad. Because Andy's so great, and because it's a really wonderful piece, and so kind of it's been kind of on the list to see if we could, you know, put it in the right slot, and if it works well with other pieces, and indeed it does.
Well, and I'd like to dwell on that just for a moment, about you know, because so many interesting things go into your programming decisions. And I have to say that I'm really excited when it comes down to, the people who've been attracted to the Quad City Symphony Orchestra. I think Andrew Parker, I think, lives and works in Texas, but it
Correct.
comes here to be part of our symphony orchestra.
Right.
And I don't want to get into a whole list of names because of the people that I might omit. But when you have these great talents with some of these particular instruments across the orchestra, I will speak on behalf of, I think, many QCSO fans, that I really enjoy it when you're able to elevate them. And we love it when we have guest soloists like last month and so forth. But
Right.
to be able to celebrate the people that we can hear and appreciate month in and month out, that's a very special treat.
It is. Well, and to have that kind of talent of people, and we've talked about this before, people who not only are just amazing orchestra players, but can step in front of the orchestra and be soloists. I mean, that's a different skill set. It's a different mentality. But we have, a great number of them that are just such great musicians and such great performers that, yeah, we're very blessed in that way.
And we don't want to give short shrift, because he would never have allowed anyone to give him short shrift in his lifetime, to Herr Mozart.
Right.
I've been looking back and thinking about it, and what I enjoyed the way that you have brought to us Beethoven symphonies, Mahler symphonies, but you've been a little sneaky about peppering that with some Mozart symphonies. I'm grateful for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I love Mozart. I mean, I'm conducting an opera, La Finta Giardiniera, a very early opera written when he was 18, and it's just full of amazing music, and you see in the young Mozart, you absolutely see what happens later on in his compositional life. It's short, of course, sadly, tragically short compositional life. But the three last symphonies are kind of like the Holy Trinity, the triad, 39, 40, and 41. Each one written in just a fevered pitch, like in about 2 months, he wrote all these pieces, and toward the end of his life. And I don't think he even heard. I'm not sure which ones were premiered during his lifetime. I know some of them were not. But each one is very, very different. This one, E flat, the Mozart 39, for Mozart, the choice of key means a lot. And so, like, I think the last Mozart symphony we did here was Prague, the Prague Symphony in D major. And so D major has a whole different feel with open strings and with usually trumpets and drums and it kind of, I mean, D is kind of the royal key. And, different keys in that time kind of had significance. And the significance was like in opera, if something's in E flat, it means something that's different in F, and it's subtle but real. And so the key of E flat for Mozart, I think, is a very warm, rich, singing, lyrical color. I mean, you have the open G string, you have the flat side of things instead of kind of all the open strings and kind of the brightness of that. So it's warm. And most significantly is the instrumentation. What is very interesting, I think, is that this has no oboes. The lead woodwind voice is the clarinet. The clarinet, which was just being developed at this time in Mozart's time. And so a relatively new instrument to Mozart, but an instrument that he loved. And in his late opera career and his late, composing career, really embraced the newfound beautiful colored clarinet. And so that tells us a lot already. No oboes. And so we don't have kind of the brighter side of that, which oboes bring. We have the dark. So we have oboes and we have clarinets and bassoons. So it's, deep and kind of woody sound. We have one flute. So it's all kind of on the dark side of things, dark, lyrical. And there we still have trumpets and drums. We have, those kind of trappings. It's a very high energy symphony, but it's also a very lyrical symphony. And, what's amazing is you have this lyrical singing symphony, then you have the G minor symphony, which is intense and dramatic, and then you have the C major, the Jupiter symphony. These three symphonies that he wrote, right, practically simultaneously, couldn't be more contrasting, couldn't be each just a work of genius. Each, any composer would love to have one of those, that would be kind of a composer's crowning achievement. But, Mozart being Mozart just kind of tossed off these three. And, they really are kind of the pinnacle of for Mozart, the pinnacle of his symphonic oeuvre.
I just in the last couple of weeks, I managed to hear something on my public radio station, WVIK Classical. There was a scholar was kind of breaking down one of those latter symphonies and was talking about how little bits he would put them in reverse and then bring them back and do so many things. And I was sitting there thinking, I don't know from a computer perspective who is smart enough to write an algorithm that would have been that subtly inventive. I mean, so I don't think you could get an AI version of anything close to this. But then to think that a human was writing this, as you say, rather feverishly and rapidly, while doing these other things, is that just a level of musical competence and consciousnness that he didn't even have to think about this? That it was just happening? Or do you think he was meticulously planning all of these?
No, it had. I mean, he's one of the greatest geniuses to ever walk the face of the earth. I mean, Mozart and Da Vinci and I don't know. There's maybe 3 or 4 people that fit in that category, but Mozart absolutely is one of them. It was all composed in his head before he ever put it down to paper. I mean, the hassle for him was putting it on paper. It was all there already, and so he just had such genius. There's no other word for it. That if he heard a style from another country, he could just like incorporate it just like that and make it his own. If he heard a new instrument, he could do that. If he heard a Bach fugue, they said, "Oh yeah, let me try that," and then he could write an entire last movement of the 41st Symphony, with some of the most amazing, mathematically amazing counterpoint, without it sounding contrived. I mean, it's just musical ability that is, unmatched by anybody.
What I find interesting, I haven't read a lot of his words, but one that really stands out is he didn't at least claim to have any sort of super genius. In fact, if anything, he once was observed to have remarked that he wrote music the way a sow would urinate, only he used a much earthier German term. And I mean, in other words, saying that without even thinking, it happens without any conscious effort on his part.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not good. I mean,
right. No, not at all.
Right,
but I mean,
right.
He was, if somebody was asking him, how did you do this?
Right.
I don't think he had an answer.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you're a religious person, I mean, he had a direct line. It came from God to him.
Yeah.
And he was the messenger. I mean, I don't know if he said that, but I'm not the first person to say this. But
right.
I mean, music of this level, of this, first of all, spontaneity, just the ease with which it comes. I mean, it's just breathtaking. It really is. And so to be able to just humbly open a score and try to bring it to life is it's a great honor, and it's a great responsibility actually when you're working with a masterwork. I mean, of course we call it the Masterworks series, and they all are masterworks, but like there's some that are more masterworky than others probably. So.
We've created a new word, masterworky. I like it. So, I mean, like I said, you've introduced us to several. I think you gave us the Linz, and I think this completes the latter 3. And you mentioned Prague. Are there other Mozart symphonies that you're anxious to share with us in the Quad Cities? Not necessarily in the next year.
I mean, you just look for the right opportunity. I mean,
yeah.
The Paris Symphony is great. There's some great early symphonies. The A Major Symphony, 29. There's 25. Super dramatic G minor. Early. The early symphonies are different. The Prague, I love 36. You mentioned Linz. Hofner, we haven't done. I mean,
all right.
It's 34 is a great C major, is a great symphony, kind of underappreciated a bit. 33. I mean, what can you say? They're just like the piano concerti, of which we're going to hear 2 from Emanuel Ax, thank goodness. There's just one work of genius after another, all different. So is there a favorite one? No. You love the one you're with. You love the one you're with because
right.
they're all so different and so great.
Oh, Well, I'm just very grateful, and that's, I guess, the origin of that question, for the way that you've brought these to us. As a kid, I would listen to some vinyl recordings of a lot of these, and just play them over and over again, and not really. I can't say I understand them even today, but it's just, there's something that even for a dim wit like me, that just, it speaks to the genius, and you understand that. And so I'm grateful to you for bringing it to us. And that little bit of a tone off on the side there lets me know that we're almost out of time. Anything else for this wonderful December Masterworks?
No, I'm just looking forward to it. It's something different, like playing Mozart. It's a different style than the big, we just had a huge program, Masterworks II, with the American Symphony and with Rachmaninoff. And the orchestra, of course, does that incredibly well. But now playing Mozart with smaller forces and absolutely a different approach, a different playing approach to mirror the style of playing that was happening during Mozart's time and that fits the music. That's a whole other skill and a whole other approach, but also great, and so and the orchestra does it really well. And same with Handel, same with the American pieces too. I mean, each one takes a different stylistic approach, and so we have to be very chameleon-like. And that's what we do.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and friends, thank you for watching us on Concert Conversations. Thanks, of course, to Chris Connolly and Wells Fargo Advisors for that support. And a reminder, friends, we are looking forward to seeing you either Saturday night at the Adler, but on Sunday, if you're joining us, we'll be at the Bartlett Performing Arts Center at Moline High School. A lovely venue, great acoustics, and I think you'll really enjoy that.
It's a great venue for a program like this, actually.
Yeah, we're especially, really. So anyway, we're grateful that you've joined us, and grateful to you, Maestro Mark Russell-Smith. Thanks, and we hope to see you at the Quad City Symphony Orchestra concerts.
Thanks.